Good afternoon and welcome back to Questioning Sense with me, Matt. Hi guys, I hope you are all well. I have just finished work. The weather is absolutely atrocious, so I thought I'd make a quick video before I go and do the school run. On the subject of the school run, this was a present to me from my son for Father's Day, so we're not dipped our toes into the world of merchandise or anything as crazy as that. It was just a present, so I thought I'd wear it for the free video that he'll get to see. So anyway, as the weather's so bad, I've decided to do a video devoted to perfumes containing a leathery element. Now, leather in perfumery, it's not a straight note. It's normally created by a group of materials that make an accord of leather. I don't think there's any sort of anyone actually tincturing leather to give that smell in a perfume. It's normally a combination of other materials that make this leathery accord. It's one that I really like, especially on grey days. There's something quite, I don't know, it can either be quite raunchy, it can be quite sexy, or it can be quite austere, it can be quite difficult, it can be quite challenging, but it's a note I really enjoy. So I thought what we'll do is we'll have a look at, I've got 11 perfumes for you to have a look at. I've tried to include some weird and wonderfuls, and I've tried to include some that I don't often talk about that much. And as always with these lists, they're not really in any particular order. I think the number 1 and number 2 probably are where they should be. But we've also tried to incorporate some perfumes that are not just, we're not just talking about niche or very expensive designers here. There's a few in here that, so there's something in here for every budget. So, okay, what we'll do is going to be the classic whistle stop. Not going to delve too much into each perfume, but just give you a brief description and, who can wear them, how I think they are, what they're good for, that what sort of situations they're really going to be good for, that kind of thing. So I think what we shall do is get on with it. Okay, we were going to start where we should always start when we're talking about leather, and that is with Farrah Yukawam by Circus. Now, I've mentioned this in loads and loads of it. I still actually haven't done a video on this one, but it's popped up in many videos. It's obviously by the Middle Eastern house Circus. It's a clone of Tom Ford's Tuscan leather, and I think this is superb. If you like Tom Ford's Tuscan leather, this is an absolute no-brainer because it costs a fraction of the price, although it has come up in price quite a bit recently. But it smells, to me, just that little bit better than the original that it clones. Performance on this particular bottle is absolutely brilliant. I understand there's a possibility that some of these have been reformed. I'm not entirely sure because this is the only one I've ever smelt. And it's a huge perfume. It's got that sharp raspberry, that really interesting and totally unique to Tom Ford's leather kind of vibe to it. Some people say it smells a lot like cocaine. I can't confirm or deny that, but it's awesome. It really is a belter. And if you want to go particularly mad, layer it with something like BR 540 or even Thomas Kosmala's number 4 if you really want to be noticed on the other side of the world. But yeah, really potent stuff, and I really like this one. I don't wear it that much because it's just a bit too intense. You've got to pick your moments perfectly to wear Farrah Yukawam, but it's a really good perfume, smells great, and it is rather tenacious. Okay, next up, we're going to have a look at this one, which is Nice 10. Now, this perfume is just coming up to 100 years old, so it's a very dated leather floral. In the original formulation of it is very sort of tarry. It had a real oily vibe to it, but this is a really sophisticated, beautiful use of florals, strong leather, perfect fragrance, excellent performance, long lasting. And these little 30ml bottles you can pick up really quite cheaply. I think Le Senteur do them, but there's lots of people that sell them. So it's well worth exploring. It is classic and it does have a dated vibe to it, but it's a really lovely one. And it's just a nice perfume to wear. It's a great one for work because it's not too loud. It has good, it projects quite well and it gives a good sillage, but it's not over the top, so you can wear it pretty much anywhere. But it's definitely for the more mature fragrance enthusiast, and I think the thrusters may struggle a bit with it, but I think this is quality. It just smells of class to me. It's a really a good one. Okay, next up, one I reviewed recently, and this was sent to me by some people from Russia, called Nose, and this is called Lumberman. This is awesome. What a crazy perfume this one is. It's got everything going on there. It's almost like what's the word I used to describe it last time? It's almost like a savoury gourmand. You've got such a weird sort of smoky herbal vibe to it, which blends into some rubbers and a little hint of plastic, and then you have this deep, indulgent, leathery vibe that comes through. Extremely long lasting, beautiful perfume. Really, really good leather and totally unique. I've never smelled anything remotely like this one, and nor am I likely to. It's just an incredible bit of perfume, actually, to be honest with you. And this is quite affordable too. You have to wait a bit for the postage from Russia, which is a bit slow. But I think, you know, for a 30ml bottle of an extremely long-lasting and very potent and rather unique perfume, I think you're paying around £50 for it, which is an excellent value perfume to buy. Beautiful stuff. Okay, on to the next one. And the next one we're going to have, can't have a list without an Auto Parisi. And here we have Circus, my favourite house, and one of the, well, they're all brilliant. But I love Circus. This is slightly animalic. It's got an almost like a hint of a Hindi, you know, a Hindi Indian oud in the opening that gives it a bit of funk. There's also some tobacco in here, and then it starts to become a leathery, tobacco-driven dry down. But it's a good fun fragrance. There's enough sweetness to get you out of any sticky situations. It's not as mad as it sounds, trust me. It's one you're definitely going to have to sample. Perfect for the thrusters because of the sweetness, and for the more mature fragrance enthusiast. I think this is a fantastic fragrance, good fun, well worth exploring. And of course, it's by Alessandro Gualtieri, and it's from my favourite house. Okay, next up, we're looking at Vespero by Jeroboam. This is a fantastic fragrance. Me and Rich both have this. We absolutely love it to death. It's often described as a cross between Aventus and Tuscan leather, and that is kind of accurate. There's a lot more to it than that. It has a slightly Aventus-like opening, which has got some fruits and some sharpness. There's a lot of musk in here, and then it starts to become darker and becomes a lot more leathery as it dries down. Extremely long-lasting perfume, very sophisticated, very smart. So under £100 for a 30ml bottle. So it's not a cheapie, but it's such a long-lasting perfume. You really don't need to spray it a lot. And it's really, really good. It's just one of these ones that you can wear and it will keep you going all day, but the changes are so interesting. It's so bright and sharp and pronounced to start off with, and then it gets darker and darker and more leathery. Beautiful fragrance, and really, really one I highly recommend. If you're ever in Javoy or I think Selfridges carry it, and also DeSoto Harrods, and you haven't tried anything from Jeroboam, then please do. They're an amazing house. They've got about 10 perfumes, I think, in the collection now, and all of them are very, very good. This is the only one I own at the moment, but I would certainly like to add more to the collection. So there you have it, Vespero by Jeroboam. Okay, next up, the classic. How can we not talk about leather without having this baby in here? Gucci Guilty Absolute. This is a masterpiece as far as I'm concerned. One of the most brave, bold and exciting designer fragrances that have been released in my lifetime. Well, not in my lifetime, but you know, in recent memory, shall we say. I think it's been discontinued, but you can still get bottles from it from discounters. If you can, please do. It's got a lot of patch and a lot of leather. It also has a slightly medicinal edge to it, so you do kind of get this sort of band-aiding vibe in the opening. But I think it just makes it all the more exciting. Fantastic fragrance. As soon as I smelt it, I said to Rich, "You're going to need a bottle." He ordered it, and I think he's on his second bottle. So yeah, I mean, Gucci a Guilty Absolute. I'll put my teeth in. Well worth exploring. If you like a really masculine, mature leather fragrance, this has got to be in your collection. Fabulous stuff, and also pretty reasonable at the moment as well. Okay, next up, we're going to look at this crazy one, Le Lion from Chanel. Now, I might cause a bit of a stir by adding this into the listings because this is not supposedly a leather fragrance. It's got notes of bergamot and lemon. It's quite smoky. There's some faint incense in here. There's a lot of spices. There's some vanilla, some patch, and it all leads to this ambery type dry down. Now, for me, the amberiness in this actually starts to smell more like a leather fragrance than a traditional amber fragrance, and it's really, really good. It's an expensive fragrance, don't get me wrong. It's from the Les Exclusives collection, so you know it's going to be pricey, and unfortunately, because of that, Chanel you'd very rarely find their fragrances at discounters, unfortunately. But if you do get a chance to try it, please do. It has it does remind me a little bit of Guerlain's Shalimar, especially in the opening with the bergamot and the lemon and the smokiness, and then this sort of vanilla that comes into it. But it's a stunning fragrance. It's really, really long lasting as well. It's got amazing performance, and it's just polished and grown up and sophisticated and absolutely wonderful. This would be a really good one for wearing to work and things like that, especially if you're in a smart sort of environment, or you're going out on a big night out. This would be perfect for that too. I think this is a work of art, and I think Oliver Polge in 2020 knocked it out of the park with this release. I don't know if it's been as well received as it maybe should have been. I think because it's similar to other fragrances, it's kind of been like a little bit frowned upon. But for me, this is absolutely outstanding. There will be a full review of this coming soon because it's just such a beautiful fragrance, and I absolutely adore this one. So there you have it. Right, next up, we're looking at one from Cadillac, and this is called Oud Pour Rouge. Now this is a 100ml bottle, which I think goes for around £49. There is the Q Sense 10 discount code if you get it through Aroma Concepts as well. I really like this one. It's not one I reach for very much because I've got Vespero, and they both do kind of a similar thing, although this is more fruity than Vespero. What it is, it's a fruity, sort of musky, slightly earthy, leathery fragrance. It really, really lasts, so you get an awful bang for your buck. I mean, the presentation's really cool. I love these bottles that Cadillac do. I think the caps have changed now. They're quite a lot more of a showy cap. But this is a really, really good fragrance. It's a perfect one for work because it will get you through the day, but it'll be nice if you're going out for an evening or something like that. It is, to me, reminiscent of some of the Memo Paris leather fragrances. I always get them confused, so I'm not going to try and say which one, but I think is it Italian leather or maybe Irish leather that kind of does that sort of leathery fruitiness, which this one does really, really well. So if you want a kind of very expensive smelling fragrance on a budget, then this is a really, really good point to go at. So there we have Oud Pour Rouge from Cadillac. Okay, down to the final three, and this is where it got nigh on impossible for me to separate. So here we go, the final three. And here we have Bohemian from Swedoft. This is beautiful. This is such an amazing fragrance. It's not for the faint of heart because there's a really punchy oud note in here, but it's beautiful. You have these sweet dried fruits, this kind of almost animalic, borderline funky oud that just belts out. This fragrance has awesome performance. It's really, really long lasting. It's got huge projection and really, really strong sillage. Once that fruity oud kind of starts to calm down, you'll get a slight smokiness, and then this wonderful leathery vibe comes through. And it's just such an intriguing perfume. It's a really exciting one to wear. It's not one I do get to wear that often because my wife really doesn't like it, unfortunately, but I absolutely love it. So when she's out, I can wear this, or if I'm going out on my own, I'll wear this. I do wear it to work, especially in the winter. But, you know, for me, this is all about going down to the pub with your friends and, you know, having a real kind of, you know, just feeling fantastic. And it's a brilliant perfume for that. So there you have Bohemian from Swedoft. Really, really highly recommended. The performance and everything is just tip top with this one. Okay, and then the final two. So here we have Leather Oud from Floris. What a wonderful gentleman's fragrance this is. Now, there is a full review of this one, but this is gorgeous. You have this really oily, deep bergamot mixing with this leather, and then you have this medicinal oud, and as it kind of warms up, you've got this sort of sweetish, kind of smoky amber that comes into the leather, but it's just absolutely stunning. It's such a... It's just the smell of a sharp gentleman. If you go out wearing this and you're a guy and you're well groomed, you will be absolutely on the top of your game. It's amazing. It does lend itself more to the more mature fragrance enthusiast, purely because it's just all the notes in this kind of are sort of notes from the past. You know, they're classics rather than modern. But the perfume itself doesn't smell dated. It's like a very, very niche version of something that Mancera would make. And I have a couple of Manceras that remind me of this, but since I've had this, I've not touched them. This has been my go-to every single time. It's class, it's sophisticated, it has excellent performance, and unfortunately it is expensive. It does pop up at discounters, so you can get it, but if you're going to buy it from Floris, it's about £160 for 100ml. So if you were to look at, say, Mancera's the Oud, which is similar, obviously it's a lot sharper and it's a lot rougher, that's about half the price. So if you want something like this, or if you want this but you don't want to spend the money, have a look at Mancera's the Oud. Now, they're not exactly alike. The Oud uses rose, and this doesn't really use that much rose, or if there's any rose in this at all. So if you like a rosier oud that does kind of do a similar job, have a look at Mancera's the Oud. But for me, this is just so much nicer. It's such a wonderful fragrance. I absolutely adore it. A very smart and sophisticated, highly polished perfume. And then finally, my number one, I think you probably know what's coming, and that's Iron Duke from Beaufort, London. This is just an amazing fragrance, and it's I've mentioned it many, many times. I will always have this in my collection because it reminds me so much of my father, who is no longer with us. So it's a real link to some beautiful, happy memories for me. But we have notes of oud, we have gunpowder, we have smoke, we have saddle soap, we have this beautiful leather light dry down, and that's just where this perfume gets me. When all the mad stuff, the gunpowder and the smoke and all the craziness that all happens in the opening, it does stay with you for a very long time. But as the perfume dries down, this has the most wonderful, soft, comforting, calming leather vibe. It's like being, you know, on the most comfortable settee you've ever sat in, or wearing the best leather coat you've ever had. That's what I get from this one, especially once all the madness is kind of finished. So there you go. That's my number one pick out of these wonderful fragrances. In all honesty, though, every single one of them is absolutely brilliant, and the reason they're in the list is because I highly recommend all of them. Now, if you've got a leather fragrance that you love, I have one more to add to my list, and that's Derby by Guerlain, which I don't own yet, but as soon as I do, then I'll have to redo the list with a different, probably top three. But I do really love Derby by Guerlain, so hopefully one day I'll get a bottle. But that's my 11 fragrances for you guys that I think are really, really good interpretations of leather. Obviously, Le Lion is not a leathery, or not supposedly a leather fragrance, but it's one that I consider a superb leather. So there you go. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed the video. Any questions, as usual, put them down below or hit us up on Instagram. And hopefully we shall see you very soon on the next video. Cheers, thanks, and bye.